It's important for us. I mean, the reason we've agreed to do this is there's some misinformation out there, and that's been hard for us. And that's why we, as a family, talked about it and agreed to do this, because the things that are being said are 100% not true. There's not drugs involved. There's not some weird.
Hello, all. Welcome back to Mind Juice. The photos you see of DM on the thumbnail were shot by paparazzi during break while she was back home in Boise, Idaho, said to be the first time she was seen since the events. I will get to that and share the article with you, but first, let's put everything in order. Now, the clip you saw to open the episode was of Ethan's parents shortly after the tragic events took place. A lot of people respect the interview with the parents and their words, which they should. Yet, then we hear a short time later on a different platform, a mom of a daughter whom attends Washington State University, which is in Pullman, who dates an athlete that attends the University of Idaho, state the following.
Listening, who's got kids over there or lives over there, to know that don't just think because this guy's behind bars right now that it's all done and it's safe, because it's really not. The case is still ongoing. The investigation is still ongoing, and pretty active. And I have two kids over there. It's scary, right. Terrifying, actually. And I get they got to catch the guys, but the lack of transparency is wild. A drug problem, a significant drug problem. There's a Greek road problem, and I've got kids on Greek road, right? So I'm coming from a place of knowing, and I just want people to just have a conversation with the kids. You are not safe. Just because the guy's behind bars does not make you safe, right? And I do know this because, well, obviously I'm here now, and what are they going to do? My daughter, because my daughter knew at 10 a.m. It was Parents' Weekend the weekend it occurred, right. And so we went to get my daughter for breakfast, and then. And my son to go to breakfast and go to whatever, grocery shopping or whatever before we left. And on the way home, we get this alert. It was like 5 o'clock. We come over to the other side of the mountain. Our kids are about 6 hours away. And so we came home and we get this alert, and I called my daughter and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I already know, Mom. I knew that this morning, like around 10. I'm like, how did you know? And so anyway, as it all comes out, as I immediately called the FBI and told them every bit of information I had been given from my daughter and her roommate for them. They weren't there, but they think the guy's behind bars now and they're good. And the fact is, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a huge problem. It's a problem on Greek Row, and it's a problem with Sigma Chi, and there are 10 student deaths at U of I. It could have been my kids. Yeah. It could have been all of our children, and nobody's paying. People are satisfied with it's okay because we said it was okay. But guess what? How can you tell me my kid is safe and that it's a targeted event, but you don't know who is the target or why? It's not. One has to make two. When it makes all these other numbers, something's not right. And I'm that mom that's just going to be a pain in the rear. Right. It's just, and I don't apologize for that. God gave me these children, and it's a numbers game. So these are two small towns that are connected, right? They're not competitive. They don't compete against each other. They're not rivals, I guess is the verbiage I'm looking for. They're not rival state schools, but they're friendly schools. They get along with each other. A lot of the kids that went there so, but they're numbers games. Those towns rely on our students' tuition. They do. And it came all the way, and I do think the bottom line was these kids are going to pour out of here if we don't get control over the narrative. Controlling the narrative would have been to be honest, to say, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what happened. We're going to send you guys all home globally. We know how to do this. We just did COVID. We can do this. We can rally. That would have kept your numbers up. Now, kids are fleeing. Like, they're dropping like flies. If I get my daughter out of there, I would have. And I think they should, if they release him, my daughter doesn't have an argument with me anymore. She can pay her own tuition if she wants to stay, but she's coming home. I mean, honestly. So I think, yes, it's a numbers game. It's about money. And I actually think it's really worth a deep dive into Christ Church. It's a very interesting and disturbing church.
I do not believe the internet does believe. There's a lot of theorists out there. There's a lot of internet chatter going on about DM. Do not like the idea that she survived. They do not like the idea that she's not in jail right now. Investigated her. They've got information, and there was nothing there for her. But for some reason, they believe that she is the drug queen of the Northwest. I've seen everything from she has 6 FBI agents on her payroll to she has judges and lawyers, the police chief, the police department, the sheriff's department, the sheriff, all under her rule. They also think that she has enough power to hire murderers to come and kill 4 of her roommates because they got an argument 2 weeks prior to their death. and they believe it's all over drugs. They believe that this 20-year-old college student has that much power and control that she conspired to do this whole thing and has controlled into the residence, and it was cleaned up of all the drugs. There was one mother that said her child went to WSU and told her all about this house, how it's a drug house and felons and going on there. So she went to social media and contacted an individual who reported this. It's not true. If somebody you see is reported, somebody close to this case, or somebody that's close to the investigation, they're not. Unless it's been released by the police department, sheriff's department, the FBI, the courts, it's not true. Just because somebody says they know somebody who said something, or somebody who's close to the investigation, that means they're not in the investigation. They've just taken information from the internet like everybody else has, and they put 2 and 3 together and came up with 4 for some reason.
First thing, this is no reflection of the show Drunk Turkey channel whatsoever, because that is where I got the audio. I enjoy their show daily. I'm just utilizing the phone call they had. I just wanted to make that clear. Now, I am in no place also or either to judge this parent's position and or feelings in regards to the fear she now feels given the proximity of the events and where her kids go to school. However, as you heard her state, I want to clarify a few things. She says, don't think because he's behind bars, you're not safe. Why is that? The evidence shows otherwise. In fact, you could say that you're not safe ever at college. Things always happen. She says, the lack of transparency is wild. The officers in the investigation is not and cannot publicize everything they know, each step of the way. Hell, we all had no clue they had someone in their sights, but they did. Bryan. Had they provided this transparency all along, who knows what Bryan would have done? Does he have more victims? If he had known they were onto him? That is what she was asking for. She states, significant drug problem. Kids on Greek Row. I'm coming from a place of no. Well, I hate to break it, but there is a significant drug problem across the country at every single university, especially within the context of frats. I went to college. I partied hard back in the day, and yes, they get out of hand and wild. Greek Row has always had that reputation. Have you ever heard of Animal House? She says, again, just because the guys behind bars doesn't make you safe. This is fear she expressing, not rationale. She's right. You are never actually completely safe. College has its dangers of its own, as I stated. But not because you or we don't know all the details behind the arrest and evidence against Bryan up until this point. That will come with trial. And then she says, I do know this because my daughter knew at 10 a.m. With all due respect, the daughter is a student at Washington State University. So, because her boyfriend is an athlete of the University of Idaho, he found out, then what? Texted his girlfriend and her friends to tell them? Really? Mom is speaking out of a frazzled mind fog here and fear. She doesn't understand what she's implying. My question is how does this University of Idaho athlete know its association with drugs? I mean, isn't that the true question? She states, I called the FBI, my daughter and friends. They weren't there. Okay, they weren't there. You said that. And if you call the FBI, great, good. And they will take care of it from there. Then she says, this is just the tip of the iceberg, Sigma Chi. 10 deaths, could have been my kids. How can you say my kids are safe and it's targeted, but yet you don't know why? Again, a mother's fear, and I respect that. Nobody knows why. That is the prosecution's job come trial. We have to let them handle it. We cannot jump the gun and presume this or that. We are never, as the public, going to have that transparency for our protection. She states, it's a numbers game, rely on tuition. Bottom line, kids are going to pour out, controlling the narrative. Honest, we just did COVID, send the kids home globally. Okay, being realistic, you can't just send a whole university of kids home because that empowers the killer. You have to continue on with normal daily life, with a heightened sense of vigilance, of course, and awareness. All college cities are a number game. Controlling the narrative, I can say that this lady is twisting and distorting the narrative. Calling in does not help the truth. I wonder how she would feel if her daughter was in DM shoes. Sincerely. And then she says again, if they release him. Again, this is fear. Why would they release him? This isn't a video game. And then you hear a reference, Christchurch. Very interesting, disturbing. So we get Christchurch, drugs, Greek row. How does this type of stuff catch traction? Yet the interview with Ethan's parents doesn't hold the candle to it. Remember, Ethan has 2 siblings also at the University of Idaho. Wouldn't they have a better understanding than a mom of a daughter from WSU? And further, yes, the house has a reputation for drugs in the past. This does not mean every resident that moves in and takes over inherits that title. I argue to instead follow the individuals who once lived there and have now moved on. You want to find the drugs, go look them up. I'm not saying maybe the girls didn't maybe have some Mary Jane or Molly or Coke or etc. Who cares? They weren't dealing. Law enforcement forensically scanned BF and DM's phones. Wouldn't they find some mineral of evidence? Remember, even if they delete it, they still find it. Or if they reset or wipe their phone, that's a whole nother can of worms. And they would have looked into that.
Pointed out is getting a lot of hatred pointed her way as a victim of a horrific crime.
Reports were that the 2 roommates on the first floor didn't hear anything. I think that was a tactical decision in order to protect those witnesses. And from a couple of things. Number one, from the suspect and from people that are being critical of this young lady. Now, people react with stress in different ways. She didn't know at the time what we now all know. Mask on, and he's got black on, and he's got bushy eyebrows, which I thought that's an amazing observation. You know, when all this stuff is happening at that moment in time, and remember, this is all happening in seconds, in very few minutes. I mean, this is moving through time. This is not, okay, this happened and she saw this and then they all stopped and what is happening? This is very fluid when all this is going on. So I don't find it strange that she responded in the manner in which she did.
Yeah, she was intoxicated and she went back in her room, frozen in fear, didn't hear anything else, and fell asleep.
And saw the guy leave. I mean, You know, at that point, there's no longer a threat. Judging this girl and saying she froze and all this other stuff. Look, what happened is what happened. And I don't think there's anything weird, strange, nefarious, or anything else on the way she responded.
Those last clips were from Surviving the Survivor. I know Joe, the host, always has a few choice words to say when he hears or sees his show on other content, but I'm using it in an honest victim advocacy context. I hope he's cool with that. With that said, probably my favorite YouTube channel covering this case. If you're not aware of it or familiar, please go subscribe and watch. You're in for a treat. He has the best guest in true crime. Now, from my perspective, the way all of the rumors have flew around, think of it this way. If Ethan would have survived, remember he had a curfew, people would spin the narrative that he had something to do with it. If Kaylee would have survived, they would have insisted she had something to do with it, stating she wasn't even supposed to be there that night. If Maddie would have survived, they would have blamed her, using her bullying history, blah, blah, blah. If Xana would have survived, they would have insisted that it was due to her mom being a drug trafficker and they had to take someone out. You get the point. The reality is, both DM and BF were fortunate to survive, cleared by investigators, yet DM, because she gave the accounts and witness testimony that she did, is getting roasted for it. Now let's take a look at the article. Surviving Idaho roommate Dylan Mortensen is seen outside her parents' home for the first time since it was revealed she froze in fear when she spotted the killer. Okay. She spotted 19 at her family home in Boise, Idaho, Sunday morning after a trip to Starbucks. It's ridiculous. The University of Idaho sophomore was wearing shorts in chilly weather and had her hair pulled back. I mean, this writing, this journalism is disgusting, okay? An affidavit revealed that Mortensen saw the murder of the night of the killings. Okay, we know all that. So, amid the torment of those losing 3 of her roommates in a tragic murder, University of Idaho student Dylan Mortensen has been spotted for the first time since it was revealed she saw the killer at the scene. Exclusive DailyMail.com photos show the 19-year-old sophomore returning to her family's home in Boise after a Sunday morning coffee run. Oh, they just make it sound so elegant. Dressed in shorts in chilly 44-degree weather, Mortensen had her blonde hair tied back for a brief outing to Starbucks close to her home. She also wore a navy blue fleece top. Mortensen and Bethany Funke. Okay, I'm not going to read that, but look at these pictures, okay? They're kind of blurry there, but there's multiple of them. They're all the same. But if you look here, look, she's walking, okay? And then, in my opinion here, it looks like she's crying. Look at her face. I mean, she has news reporters sitting out in the driveway of her home. Now, does that look like somebody who had something to do with it? Or does it look like somebody who doesn't know how to handle the mirror that just shattered is her life, that just shattered, and doesn't know how to move on? Look at her. She looks upset. Okay. And then, if I can go into these a little bit bigger. The University of Idaho sophomore wearing shorts in chilly weather. Like, this is ridiculous journalism right here. This is the first time Morton has been seen since it was revealed she saw the killer at the scene. Yeah. But, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I guess I saw this and wanted to share because, to me, it doesn't prove anything. But, I mean, look at the emotion in her face there. Does that look like somebody that's guilty of being an accomplice, or does it look like somebody who doesn't know how to handle what she's facing? She's probably going out to do something by herself to maybe clear her mind. And look, she's jumped by some Daily Mail who goes and then writes an article like this. I mean, this is absurd. So again, the purpose of this video was to hopefully provide some more rationale to that, cut through the rumors, cut through the bullshit. I mean, you can still make your own opinion, but I mean, we have to stop shaming her. I mean, this is a real person. I mean, she's 19. She's young. She just learned how to live on her own. Who knows what will happen if people keep continuing to attack her? Let's be nice. Everything I have provided you here in this episode is based on law enforcement perspective, past FBI agents, as well as a sheriff. Not active on the case, yet expressing the impression to the people, given their experience in the field when dealing with intense public case cases. Remember, we can only operate off of what we know. It is beyond dangerous to listen to a mom call in who has a daughter at a local university, drug rumors, etc., and then root them in your foundation of truth and perspective. Like the first individual stated, if it did not come from law enforcement, it is not true. There is a gag order in place. Remember that. So if anything sounds a little off, it most likely is. And I know some of you do not want to hear that. And you want to go and jump on all the rumors. And don't get me wrong, I'm right there with you. It's fascinating, it's interesting, but you gotta keep boundaries. Have to keep boundaries out of respect for the surviving victims and the families of those who lost loved ones. That's what they deserve. Remember that. And I know a lot of you aren't like that, and I will not be discussing this topic any further. This is the last thing I had to get out on it, so I'll be moving on, and I hope we all can. To be straightforward and honest, I spent a lot of time on this case, previous video, and it's discouraging. The only thing people want to hear is the rumors and conspiracy. I'm sorry. I honor ethical and moral analysis and investigation. You will never see me jumping on the what's hot viral train or rumor coaster. Not here. So I mean this sincerely. if you're one whom believes or thinks Dylan had anything to do with it, it would be best for both of us if you would just keep moving right on along, unsubscribe, and never look back. I am not in this for the Esquire tone. Victim advocacy, raw truth. With that said, I hope everyone is having themselves a grand evening. Until next time, Mind Juice out.